Hi YouTubers. So first thing I want to tackle, I've already kind of started on, is sanding the Companionway Hatch boards and the like. So let's go topside. Alright folks, well this is what the Companionway Hatch's planks look like initially. They were really rough, all gray, had lots of ridges and like some tape stuck to them. So after hours and hours of sanding and a little varnishing, here's what they look like afterwards. This is with about maybe 8 coats of varnish. I'm probably going to put a few more on there. So now onward to the rear hatch. Alrighty, so I have managed to get the first coat on the rear slats and I'm going to put subsequent coats again on the front hatch. These guys have another coat on them, so they're right at about 6 or 7 coats. And now it's time to get started on these. Strip the varnish off and I'm to the point where I'm sanding with a sanding block now. I ran the belt sander over them just to knock off high spots, because the wood without the varnish, of course, teak will start to develop these ruts, and those will take forever to sand out with the block. So I just ran the belt sander over it real quick, and now we'll start on that and get this protected so we can move on to some real cleaning and whatnot. The thing I'm trying to be real considerate of on this wood is the fact that there are going to be low spots here and there. And if there are low spots, I'm going to sand a bunch of teak off the outside to smooth out the low spot. So I'm trying to do some of this by hand so that I can be considerate of the old wood, kind of so to speak, and not sand off a whole lot of wood just to get one low spot out that we can deal with other ways. Okay, well, I've got these down to a relatively nice smoothness level without gouging too much of the teak out of it. One thing I like to do is when I'm all done and I wipe it down with a dry cloth and I wipe it down with a wet cloth, this gives me an idea of the tone that I'm going to get out of this piece of teak when I varnish it. And I like things to be a little lighter. But if you get a piece of teak that's just not very light, you're not going to get light. Anyway, you can see these teaks have probably been varnished with a much darker, or they may have been oiled and then varnished over it. We'll see when we get to that. But these pieces of teak are going to come back somewhat to a lighter shade, which is very cool. Dry all this off. I'm going to dry it with the heat gun and let it dry naturally, and then we'll put our first coat of varnish on it. It's pretty smooth though. We've got a decent smoothness on it. Anyway, finish washing these up and dry them, and we'll get a coat of varnish on them. Alright, these are the Companionway hatch boards for the rear hatch. So I did, as I showed you earlier, sanded everything down. Managed to get about 2 coats of varnish on these guys. That's the top hatch. I've got to fill some holes in, but I've got the latch on there. There's the bottom hatch. And I put another coat on this, 2 coats for the bottoms. And then there's a 3rd coat for that. I did not put another coat on these guys. They currently have 7 coats and 6 coats on them. So that's what we got done there. Did some measuring on the port lights in the back. and I'm trying to now. I've gone on the Facebook page for the Out Island 41 to source a replacement place that does replacements. Those are made by Fuller Brush, of all people, and they're supposedly, the story behind it goes something like the CEO of Fuller Brush owned a yacht, rear port lights leaked, so he took one out, sent it to his engineering department, said, make me a port light that doesn't leak and it is built really well. Supposedly these are built to really fairly stringent quality, so they're supposed to be decent. That's good. So anyway, we'll try to get a source for those. We've got to replace at least one. So that's pretty much what we did. We're about to order a cold plate for the icebox in here, a nice cold plate system. And then one of our dock buddies, Edie, said that she knew of somebody on the dock that was selling a brand new cold plate that they bought and then they ended up not using on their sailboat, and they wanted a reasonable price for it, so we're going to check into that. And then we can get rid of this guy, which we'll take him out and throw him overboard. Now, on a more serious note, we'll just give him away. That's an apartment refrigerator, as you guys have seen here before. And we may have another source for a new oven, a propane, so we can get rid of the CNG oven there. And so that's a little bit of progress that we made. Oh, and Dog Friday slept through the whole thing. Lazy bum.